Hi everyone, happy summer. I know it's been a long time since I made a video. I've been feeling pretty unmotivated in the reading department, which has not been very inspiring for me to want to make a video about reading. I've still been reading pretty much the same amount as usual. I'm just like not reading anything super interesting. I've quit a bunch of books that I started, which is fine. I'd rather not finish them than finish something I'm not really enjoying. But yeah, it's been leaving me in kind of a reading slump. But today I'm sharing with you my summer reading TBR, to be read pile. And this made me really excited about summer reading and summer in general because it's finally summer here in Vermont. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great summer of reading, and I want to share with you what my reading plans are. So I have quite the list here. I got a little maybe perhaps overexcited about my books that I want to read, but most of them I have here and a few of them I do not. But in no particular order, I am going to share with you what I want to read this summer. So the first book that I want to talk about is by one of my all-time favorite authors, Ann Patchett, and that is Tom Lake. This book came out a few years ago, and I have not gotten around to it yet, so I really have to get on it because she has another book that's coming out this summer that I also am hoping to get to sooner rather than later. But this book is about a family, and I believe it takes place during COVID quarantine, like 2020 spring, and she is basically telling her daughters the story of how she met this famous actor at this summer theater, and their relationship from the past and reminiscing on that, and then their family dynamics. And I love how Ann Patchett writes about family dynamics and parent-child and sibling relationships. I think she does that really, really well. So I'm excited to read this and finally read another one of her books because I haven't read one in a few years. The next book that I have here, I think I bought this last summer, and that is Archipelago. And this is by Natalie Bakopoulos, and I believe she's a Greek author. But this book is about a translator who goes to a summer writer's retreat, and she goes to Croatia, and she meets someone there who she starts a romance with, that she'd known from her teenage years. It's about her time at this writing residency, and her journey there on a ferry, and I think she takes a road trip back home to Greece. So it's a very summer travel book, and I am actually going to a week-long writing class this summer for the program that I'm in, for my grad school program, and so I thought that this would be fun to read, kind of reminiscent of that. Speaking of that, I will share the two books that I've been assigned to read for that class, which, aren't my chosen summer reads, but I'm excited to read them regardless. The first one is called Your Inner Fish by Neil Shubin, and this is a nonfiction book about human evolution and the similarities between humans and fish, as you can imagine from the title. And the author, he's actually a paleontologist, and he discovered this fish that has human-ish looking hands, and that's what inspired him to write this book about evolution and the similarities. And evolution isn't something that I know much about, so this will be really interesting to read. And yeah, so I'm excited to learn more about that. And then the other book that we were assigned for the class is called How Far the Light Reaches by Sabrina Imbler. And Sabrina Imbler is a writer and essayist. And this book is a collection of essays where each chapter focuses on a different sea creature, and also how that relates to Imbler's life and their family dynamics and stuff like that. So they kind of use these different animals to reflect on their own life and relationships and like society in general. So I think it should be really cool. I've read one of the essays for one of my other classes about Imbler and their relationship with their mom. It's called My Mother, the Starving Octopus or something like that. And it was really good, really well written. So I'm excited to read this collection by them. And the next book that I have here is also a nonfiction book, but this one is one of my choosing. And this is called Barbarian Days, A Surfing Life by William Finnegan. If you have watched any of my other videos, you know I love to read outdoor adventure memoirs, but I have never read one about surfing before. But this is a very highly acclaimed memoir about this writer. He became a war reporter, I think, war journalist, and so he's had a very adventurous, volatile kind of life. And so yeah, I'm excited to read this. I don't really know much about it, but I thought it would be a good change from my normal mountaineering memoirs to switch to a more summary topic of surfing. So I will be reading that. The last book that I have here that I own is The Country Life by Rachel Cusk. And I've been wanting to read a book by Rachel Cusk for a few years now. I've heard some really good things about her writing, and I think I would really enjoy it. And this novel was just one that I found at a used bookstore, so I was like, I'll pick this one. I just want to read something by her. I don't really care what it is. But this novel is about a young woman. I don't know if she's a teenager in her 20s, but she leaves London to go nanny for this family in the countryside. And I think it's just about like her and the family and some interesting hijinks that ensue between them. And, you know, it's like a coming of age kind of story. And I think those types of stories are always really good for summer. And yeah, I'm excited to get into this one. So the next book that I want to read is East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I read The Grapes of Wrath a couple of years ago, and it has become one of my favorite books of all time. I think it's one of the best, most well-written books that I've ever read. And I have not read anything else by John Steinbeck. And the reason that I want to read East of Eden now is because there's a TV series coming out in the fall, and I really want to watch that when it comes out, but I want to read the book first. And so this will motivate me to finally read another one of his books. And this story is basically, as far as I understand it, it's a retelling of kind of Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, but with a family that moves from the East Coast to the West Coast to California, and they're like start a farm there. And I think it's also during you know, the similar period of like the Dust Bowl and that, which as far as I understand. And I've heard that it's an incredible book as well, alongside The Grapes of Wrath. So I have very high expectations for it. So I hope that I enjoy it as much as I enjoyed The Grapes of Wrath. But I will definitely be reading that this summer. And then I have 2 more books that I really want to read this summer. One of them is Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. And I'm sure many of you have heard of this book. It's like taken off completely. This is a debut novel by this author. And it's about a woman who's like a trad wife type of social media influencer, but then she gets sent back into the 1800s and she has to like actually live that lifestyle where she actually has to make everything from scratch and do all of that, and where women were actually really subjugated, not that they aren't today, but in a more severe and intense way. And so I think it's a very timely and interesting topic, and you know, has a sci-fi twist, which is always fun to read for the summertime. And I finally got off the wait list from the library for that, so I will be starting that probably next. And then another book that I just got from the library is Devotions by Mary Oliver. And a couple weeks ago, I decided that on a whim that I was going to read some poetry by Mary Oliver. I am like not a poetry lover at all. I'm probably whatever the opposite of a poetry reader is, someone who doesn't like poetry. And that is what I've always considered myself. But for some reason, I just felt compelled to read some of her poetry. So I borrowed Why I Wake Early, just one of her collections randomly from the library. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It made me feel so happy. It made me feel so connected to nature. I love how she like examines small little details in nature and turns that into her poetry. And her poems are also really short, which I liked because it just, you know, it's very quick to read and it's not too like hard to understand. Like it's very simple, but in a profound way, I would say. And I know I don't have to really expound on the virtues of Mary Oliver's poetry because she's one of the most well-loved poets, but I am just discovering that I am enjoying poetry. So I am going to read her collection, Devotions, which is like her selected poems from her whole career, basically. And so her most popular, most beloved poems. And I think that that will be a great way for me to be introduced further into her. Will I ever read any other poetry? I'm not sure, but that's where I'm at. And then I also just wanted to mention the book that I just started, which is Strangers by Belle Burden. And this is another hugely popular book right now. It's a memoir about a woman whose husband suddenly during the pandemic just says that he wants a divorce and is leaving her and her kids and their family. And it's been getting a lot of hype and a lot of commentary because she's a very like she's very well off. She's from this lineage of kind of like New York aristocratic background, but she's actually an excellent writer, and I think that the book is worth reading. I am really enjoying it so far. It's very an interesting reflection on how people, you think that you really know somebody but you don't, and it's very jarring and it's very interesting to like learn how they got to this point and how she like just did not see it coming at all. And I'm listening to the audiobook, which I am enjoying and highly recommend. So that is everything on my summer TBR list. Do you think I can read all these books this summer? I think that I can. But please let me know if you have any books that you are really looking forward to reading soon. If you have any favorite books you've read in the summertime. If you're planning to read any of these books or have read any of the ones that I mentioned, I'd love to hear from you. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.